Um, Thank you. So yeah, Dia's going to be our lovely MC for me, so she'll share the presentation as I speak. But yeah, so as you all know, of course, we're talking about digital and tech art today, and that is a humongous topic. So don't consider this a comprehensive, look at all. This is me kind of just giving you a crash course slash highlighting, in my not so humble opinion, some things that I would love you to sort of learn about initially. Um, so again, there's so much we can talk about, but I want to give you just these like kind of top examples, and then we're going to kind of go through a couple of really interesting fine artists that are doing work that merge technology and art together, that are working and living today, and like what is the innovative work that's happening that we can see globally. So first, on the second slide, before we even do that, like, let's just first define what is digital art. What are some examples that we can think about? So actually, if you can go to the slide before, Dia. Dia, are you able to go one slide ahead on slide 2?
This is slide 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just the one before this, whatever number that is. I'm sorry.
This is this one.
There we go. Okay. And if it's possible to hide the notes, that would be great.
I don't have the notes on mine. Do you have the notes on yours?
I see it on mine, so if you can put it in like presenter view, I guess.
I don't have any notes on mine. Just a minute.
Is it just, oh, it's just me. I'm so sorry, y'all. This is rough. I have like period brain right now where nothing's working. My bad. But anyway, I will have Dia kind of share with you all, or she'll type out, I mean, like some of our responses to what we think digital art is. So can I just get a couple like rapid fire thoughts of what first comes to mind when you hear digital art?
Painting or drawing a piece of art using digital platforms instead of materials and colors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So actually on the next slide, that's not the viewer, or not the first slide, we can type some of those out. As well as algorithms, that's also a good point. Yeah, a lot of the ones we'll look at include algorithms for sure. Very cool, awesome.
I typed it into the chat.
Perfect, awesome.
Okay.
Yep, so digital painting and drawing, yep. I mean, there's so many ones, so like sky's the limit. But what else immediately do you think of? Like what's something that you've seen that's sort of like a technology or digital art?
Moving drawings, like they make them into videos.
Yeah, absolutely. I put digital, but I also meant like technology driven art and digital art. So what's kinds of art that uses technology too?
Simulation, the one that is used for movies.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also used in so many, with movies, and also different kinds of animation, and like, you think of like video games or any kind of sort of immersive sort of digital experience.
Maybe interior designing.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of that is, and we've seen this more since COVID, actually. Like so many things are now being put online, even more so.
Maybe the dimensions.
Sorry?
The dimensions we use 3D or 4D.
Yeah. You know, I feel so silly. I just was recently introduced to the idea of 4D. I really hadn't heard much about that, but it's amazing. We're getting even more dimensions. It's wild.
Yes.
Maybe virtual museums where like this platform that you can hang around in some virtual space where there are paintings and sculptures.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all great examples. I'll actually even be sharing with you at the very end. I have some thoughts of like some of the top museums did either, you know, 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional sort of virtual spaces for people to still visit the museums during the pandemic, which was great because it's like it made it even more accessible for people who have never been able to travel or maybe just can't as much. Awesome.
So I have a suggestion. What about coding to create something visual?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the foundation of so many of these as well. A lot of the ideas we're thinking about, even with different kinds of 3D art or even 4D art, I mean, so many of these include different kinds of coding.
Maybe sculpture using like laser cutting machines, so it's related to 3D modeling instead of sculpting by hand.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great example. Another one, which sometimes we forget now because, you know, we have all these more sort of, I don't know, unusual and innovative, you know, pushing in sort of the digital and technology world, is like even just the origins of graphic design. I mean, even just sort of the simple 2-dimensional online sort of graphics, that's also technology and sort of digital driven art. Even though that sort of seems like, you know, oh, we're so familiar with that now, that's like not super new, like that still is part of this category, which is kind of cool. Anything else that you can think of?
There's this app where you type your function and it shows the graphical representation of it. And some people actually made drawings out of those curves. And it's mind-blowing how you can actually do art through math. It's great.
Yeah, I'm someone who like has PTSD from math, but like that is the one realm of math that I like can kind of get, and I really have a lot of respect for. I mean, I have respect for math in general because it's just beyond me, but I love when there's sort of that mixing of those two sort of areas that you would never sort of think of as merging. But yeah, all of those are great examples. Thank you. If you think of any others, you know, feel free to include those. But yeah, I mean, even other examples or any kind of sort of, if you're creating apps, like sometimes that's sort of a form of art, depending on, you know, how you're doing that. Even just digital photography, or, you know, you see people kind of doing lots of digital collages and things like that. I mean, there's so many even sort of simple things that people do, and it's such an amazing sort of, I don't know, innovative medium. And there's new mediums that are, you know, being created today that were never possible before. So just to go to the next slide, I have a list of like 15 of sort of some top sort of examples of what digital and technology art includes today. Once again, this is not a comprehensive list. I'll also be posting this presentation on LMS, so you can go in and actually like have all this yourself. This list has a link to an article where I did some research on, like, I was trying to find like one resource that had like all of these listed, and you could kind of just have one place to start. And this provides some great explanations of what each of these art forms are. And includes discussion on, you know, some of these include algorithms, or some of these include coding. A lot of these are also, I think a lot of people could do some of these. Like they talk about digital collage and so many sort of even just 2D digital painting or 3D, and they talk about sort of what kinds of like how it differs from real life painting versus, you know, digital painting. And some of them are intended to replicate real life painting, where you're really using sort of what looks like brush strokes and you're having sort of painterly textures. While other ones you can see on the screen are much more digital reality oriented, which is also a really cool effect. So it really, it's amazing. There really are just sort of infinite options out there. And some of them are a little bit more advanced. So just like keep that in mind. Like some of them, like there's a fractal sort of algorithmic art, which does incorporate mathematics and incorporates sort of highly intensive programs to make those kinds of art. So those are things that people have, you know, had lots of studying and lots of work experience behind that. Some of them, you know, could be done by hand, but the use of computers makes it much more accessible and able to be manufactured and to be replicated. Another sort of connection to all of this is some people don't realize, but printmaking has been a really cool tool that sort of transitioned us into some digital art because it was an easy way to replicate and duplicate an image. Specifically with like screen printing or different kinds of printing, there's now actually a lot of cool ways where you can use sort of different kinds of digital tools to help you with physical printmaking. So there's lots of kind of just things that aren't even listed here, but there's so many interesting things. So I'd encourage you, once we post this, you can take a look and you can even get even more information on it if you want, if there's something that kind of piques your interest.
No, I was gonna ask what is manual vector drawing, but I'll check it later.
Sorry, it cut out. Can you repeat that?
I was saying that I wanted to ask what is manual vector drawing, but I'll check it later.
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me double check. I don't want to say the wrong thing because I get it confused with raster painting sometimes. Let me see. But yeah, so that's really where you're using vectors, which is, there's like pixels, which is used for specific images when you're creating like a photograph. Vectors are more when you're creating like three-dimensional shapes on a computer or other kinds of building within an online platform. So you're really creating a format that allows images to be saved, and you can actually do some sort of digital painting with that. But it's not in a pixel-based format, it's in a vector. So it's just a different kind of digital molecule, kind of, if you will. It includes like shapes and lines, and it's very geometrical. You can use all different kinds of effects like shadows, transparencies, colors, and it's easy to convert, which is great within small and large sort of sizes, which is nice. So if you're doing like really sort of, you're creating an image that could go on like a billboard or it could go on like a small thing, it's a great way to transfer those sizes. But it's an interesting field because I think there's so much you can do with it. Honestly, I don't even know a lot about it personally. Like there's so many ways you can do vector related imaging or vector related painting that people study this forever and there's still like infinite options. But yeah, that's a really good question. Does anyone have any like immediate thoughts or questions on those before we kind of move on and discuss things in more detail?
I wanted to know the difference between computer-generated painting and computer painting. Like, I'm not sure I understand. Like,
yeah, definitely. That's a good question. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. If you wanted to have another question.
yeah.
Okay, sorry. So basically a computer generated painting is an artwork which like the artist gives instructions to the computer to paint to the desired image or piece. So So obviously the computer doesn't do it by itself, like you're sort of giving instructions via some sort of digital program. So the artist is like kind of planning the concept or the imagery. It's sort of like when you think of a composer making music without an actual physical instrument. They're just composing it within a program online. So it's the same sort of with a computer generated painting. With that being said, I mean, it's with actual just sort of digital painting, you're usually using tools that are supposed to replicate real life painting. You have like a brush tool or a pencil tool, and it's like you're supposed to be sort of mimicking like somewhat what the real life painting experience is. And you can have different kinds of brushes that do different kinds of effects. And with the computer generated painting, sometimes you can do that. I think there are options that are available to do that, but it's more the idea of like finalizing a painting that is like purely a computer-based experience. So it's not so much about replicating the real life experience, if that makes sense. Feel free to look that up more. I've been very challenged actually, because I've dipped in the sort of digital art realm on and off, but I've always loved the tactileness of, you know, painting with oil and doing printmaking and drawing. Like I love just working with my hands. So I've like mixed some of the digital with it, but it really, I've really had to do a lot of research to kind of refresh my memory on this. But let me give you some real life examples, and you can kind of see like how some of these basic ideas manifest in like much larger sort of art projects and what really amazing artists are doing today. So I'll just sort of give you a quick lowdown of some of the examples we'll discuss today. First, I know these are all sort of American institutions, but I'm going to be showing you international artists that are not American that have been showcased in these spaces. So Art Tech House is actually brand new. It's something in the last couple of years that's been in Washington, DC. The Hirshhorn is an amazing contemporary sort of art museum that showcases, I believe, over 12,000 works of art from not just American, but international artists. And we have a couple examples we'll look at. And finally, we have the Cooper Hewitt, which is a design-specific museum. So they use the most innovative technology to solve like real-life problems. And we'll be looking at an example that relates to people with disabilities and like how art and design and technology are merged in that exhibition. So the first one, again, we'll look at is sort of Art Tech House, which again is brand new. It was opened in 2017, so it's been in the last 3 years. But they've already had millions of visitors, and they have some resources online. But the real objective is to put people in an immersive experience, like a physical immersive experience that is surrounded by a digital immersive platform. So usually there's sort of all these walls that are surrounded by these digital projections and all these beautiful colors, shapes, images. Usually there's a sound component, which is something that, you know, is more difficult to replicate digitally, like with a virtual exhibition per se. But they have like numerous talented and international, national artists that have been part of their sort of contemporary art space. And they're really pushing, they're pushing the boundaries of what science and technology looks like with creativity. So it's been really exciting. I got to visit it one time because I live in Virginia, which is not too far from DC, and there's always, you have to like get tickets so far in advance. This place gets sold out so easily. But the next slide has a couple more examples of what I'm talking about. There's some really, really beautiful exhibitions. So they're not just even, I don't know, pioneering in the digital realm, but just like aesthetically, they're just stunning works of art. Even if, you know, you're not interested in what happens behind the scenes, everyone I think can appreciate this. the one on the top left is in response to the Cherry Blossom Festival that happens in Washington, D.C. So they're trying to replicate what happens just in nature with technology, but like in a more sort of fantasy digital space. So it's great that like you're looking at inspiration from organic and non-digital realms, but putting it in that technology context, I think is really interesting. Because sometimes we're just seeing a lot of things that are just purely, you know, video games sort of in a digital space. It's expected. It's sort of, you know, we're all familiar with it, but I kind of like this idea. It's a bit more unusual. Again, like as we can see on the screen, I really like the statement actually by, I believe to be the founder of the space that says like every city has a destination for fine arts, for theater, for music, for film. And their goal is to be a home in those cities for innovative 21st century art that intersects art, science, and technology. But my favorite part here is it says, it's a place where one can always get inspired, be educated, and empowered by exploring the latest and best works of art and tech. So I really want to clarify that because this space is not just one that like you go, you experience, you leave. They're really wanting to educate and empower people through these works of art and kind of show the next generation what's possible. So they have a lot of great resources that they provide either on their website or in the actual space. And there, I can tell, you know, from my experience, the staff and everyone that works there is very knowledgeable about all these things. And they can even kind of explain in more detail how these works of art come to be in real life. So it's really exciting. It's like challenged me to kind of try to learn more about it myself and kind of understand how you even make something like this. It's pretty astounding. But I want to move on to the next one, which some of the examples will be a bit similar, but this is the Hirshhorn. So once again, they have an amazing collection of 20th century art as well as 21st century, as we'll see. Again, they have over 12,000 works of art, but it spans not just digital media, but painting, sculpture, works on art or works on paper, and performance. So they have a lot of amazing things to add, but they've been a prime example of actually providing really cool light and space environments. Because of the really unique nature of this building's architecture, as you can see, it's a completely round space, and it's sort of, it, you know, has this empty public space. So it's really, you have this sort of elongated circular hallway, basically. So that provides a really unique opportunity to make some really like fascinating and infinite spaces that people can just feel like they're constantly going around in the same environment, or it can be different environments. So some of the examples I'll show you will kind of show you that possibility. So the first one I'd love to introduce you to is an amazing artist named Yao Kusama. And many of you probably have heard of her. She's really famous all over the world, and she is such a pioneer for not just women, but, you know, really like a minority area at its finest. You know, she's a Japanese contemporary artist who she was born in 1929. So she has lived through so much, you know, transformation in history and so much change in art, but she's adapted her artistic practice to meet the innovation of the day. So she has a background in painting and sculpture, but she's really become more globally renowned through her infinity rooms, which we'll be talking about. And of course, like it says there, she does performance, film, fashion, even poetry. But sort of the common denominator, as you can see in all of her work, is polka dots, or just dots in general. She's really obsessed with the replication of those imageries and of those sort of circular shapes. So you see that, you know, even in her small paintings and in her infinity rooms. I love this quote by her. She says, "Our Earth is the only one polka dot among millions of stars in the cosmos. Polka dots are a way to infinity." when we obliterate nature, which means to destroy nature, our bodies with polka dots, we become part of the unity of our environment. It kind of made me think of Mr. Rash. He kind of speaks sometimes in these sort of words, and just the idea of just like, we are the universe in one molecule. And it's like, whoa. I think he may have stolen this from her because she kind of predates him. But anyway, it's an interesting idea because I really have a lot of respect for her because she actually has a history of mental health struggles, and she's really used art as a way to overcome that. So when she sort of says these like grandiose topics, it really comes from her heart, because she's actually voluntarily lived in a psychiatric institution since 1977, but voluntarily, because she's, you know, she's readily admitted her sort of obsessive nature and sort of psychological trauma, and she wants to sort of portray that through her art and kind of be an activist for normalizing mental health and using art as a way to deal with it, to communicate it, to share it, and to kind of, you know, find joy through it. So I've been really inspired by that, and she kind of invites us into her world of this sort of obsessive, you know, polka dot driven world, and we get to kind of experience it through her eyes, which I think is really lovely. So the next couple slides are just examples of what these infinity rooms look like, as much as we can experience it here. I was also able to go to this, so it was really cool. I got there at like 6 a.m. with some friends, and we waited outside in line for hours for them to open. But when you get in there, you actually only have a full minute. You have 60 seconds in each infinity room. So it forces you to be in the moment and to be present and just like fully, you know, be in that space for a limited period of time. As much as that is logistically necessary because the queues are so long, that's the artist's intent. Even if the queues aren't long, she wants it to be sort of a glimpse of infinity. If we're just sort of to sit there forever, we kind of lose the magic of just sort of that split second of the cosmos or that galactic experience. So she kind of likes to kind of play with her audience and kind of tease us a little bit with like having a glimpse of this, but not, you know, having too long to get bored of it. But I love her titles too. She has the souls of millions of light years away, for this specific infinity room. And she references some pretty heavy topics in human history. Some of these rooms are supposed to reference like terrible sort of human tragedies that have occurred throughout history, including sort of the Hiroshima bombing and things like that. She sort of indirectly likes to kind of suggest some larger ideas in these rooms. But she's created over 20 distinct infinity mirror rooms, which is really impressive. As you can see, she's kind of doing an optical illusion where she has a certain amount of lights or objects that are in this room. And then because they're surrounded by mirrors with specific lighting, it looks like it's going on forever. So it's a smart way of, you know, she's not creating billions of lights, she's creating a specific amount and putting it in this space. So she's being functional and she's being practical while also giving people this like amazing experience, this sort of kaleidoscopic environment, if you will. So with that being said, I think another artist that really uses the Hirshhorn space beautifully is with this next slide. His name is Rafael Lorenzo Hamer, I think is how you say his name, but he has sort of Latinx background, and he's sort of an immigrant in the US and has sort of these different sort of cultural identities. But I really love this work because he's inspired by some of the most basic human experiences, which is simply like hearing the heartbeats of his children in his wife's pregnant belly, which I just think is so, like, it's such a simple idea, but he has created this massive digital installation based off this one little idea, and I just find that really fascinating. And there's a couple different segments of this that we'll go through. But he really relies on the human senses for this. He looks at touch, sort of even sound and lighting and all these sort of basic human experiences. So for this first one, he looks at sort of, he actually uses the participants, the people that go see his exhibition, to create the art. So you as the viewer become the art, which is mind-boggling to me, but like so innovative. When you walk in, you can see on that first photo, you put your finger on the scanner and it puts your fingerprint on the screen, and you become one of thousands of people that gets their fingerprints put on the screen. And actually there's a slight, I don't know how to put it, like a tremble in the sound where it picks up your heartbeat as well. So it's not even just the projection, there's actually sort of a sound component. And again, you're one of 10,000 sort of users that have this, you know, projection, which is really fascinating. The next one is similar, where you're scanning your fingerprint, but it's with a different result. So you're doing this within these sort of water-filled containers, and you're creating ripple effects in the water. And it shows sort of the expansive, infinite possibilities of just one touch, one sort of heartbeat, and how that can translate across you know, different bodies of water, metaphorically as well as literally. And you're creating these ever-changing patterns. The next one is, and then the next slide, I should say, kind of gives you a better sense as to how large this experience is. There's like this larger pool of water, and there's projections of your fingerprint in the water on the walls. So you're sort of, it feels like you're kind of underwater, which I think is kind of cool. You're immersed in your own DNA, which is kind of cool. His trademark as an artist, he's created so many installations, but it's to give you sort of the sensitivity of the human experience through these immersive like heart rate sensors and kinetic and audio visual experiences. His work is purely digital. Like he's done other kinds of art, you know, in the past, but for quite a while, he's known for exclusively technology-driven art. But he does it in such a way that it humanizes us, it doesn't dehumanize us, which I find is really fascinating. He reminds us of our common humanity, what we have in common. He creates sort of these portraits through these abstract human experiences. And finally, the last room, I think might be my favorite. It's hard to say, but it's again the idea of a heartbeat, and you're kind of recording your own heartbeat through holding these sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, sort of something that picks up your heartbeat. But it connects to the lighting in the room instead of, say, like a water or a projection. But somehow he has these thousands of light bulbs suspended from the ceiling, and your heartbeat translates into one light bulb for a certain amount of seconds, and then it switches to different light bulbs, and then every light bulb represents a different heartbeat, and then as they keep going, it's in a cycle. So at first it's your heartbeat, and then your heartbeat translates to the rest of the light bulbs, and they all become synchronized, and the light blinks with your heartbeat. So the lighting is picking up your own heartbeat. And it's from the past participants as well, or the past visitors, I should say. Actually, you can even hear the heartbeats register throughout the bulbs and kind of through the sound of the room. And because of the nature of the architecture, it really echoes and it kind of accentuates the sound and the lighting. And it amplifies the physical impact of the heartbeats and of the engagement of the visitors. So that's, I don't know, that might be one of my favorite exhibitions of all time. It's pretty amazing. But finally, I want to, be sensitive to time. So we'll talk about the last example, which is the Cooper Hewitt. I find this to be a really interesting museum because on first look, it just looks like any other boring, old-fashioned institutional museum. Like, what's so special and interesting about it? But it is the only museum in the US that is exclusively devoted to design and to innovative design, specifically to help people through different kinds of objects and functional capacities. It's got over 200,000 design objects And it spans several centuries, actually. So it even shows you the origins of like just really basic objects we use today, like wheelchairs or canes or things that were made to help people, but were designed in such a way to be functional and beautiful, functional and sort of aesthetically pleasing. So it's really an innovative spot, and it reopened actually in 2014. It was closed for quite a while and just housed these objects, but you couldn't see them. So since the renovation, they've really pushed really having 21st century objects at the forefront of their museum, showing brand new exhibitions, brand new designs, and technology-driven objects. They've even gone so far as to renovate the building. So it's actually one of America's foremost design buildings, where it has a LEED silver certification, which means it's got sort of innovative, climate thoughtful, environmentally friendly design. So with the lighting and the electricity, it's really being thoughtful to how it's not adding like a carbon footprint or those kinds of things to, you know, its surrounding environment, which is great. So it's practicing what they preach, kind of. But just to show you this exhibition, this was just a couple years ago. I got to see it. It's in New York City, but they showcased over 70 innovative designs that have been developed over the last decade. And it's specifically for people with disabilities. And really trying to change the narrative to not just reflect, you know, oh, we need to kind of help people, but it's reflecting the emphasis on what a person can do if given the opportunity. It's not belittling them and like, you know, creating a smaller sort of life experience. It's expanding it and using even fashion and electronics and prosthetics. And they're really trying to challenge, you know, how much freedom and accessibility we can give to people. So I really found it fascinating because it's not even just sort of physical disabilities. They're looking at cognitive and sensory abilities. And there's so much, they're fueled by research and tons of different technology, fabrication, sort of life-enhancing products that are really unprecedented in sort of just domestic spaces, not even just sort of scientific spaces. And they're really trying to make these as accessible as possible and something that people could use in their own homes. So you even see examples of these canes that are, or actually look at these clothes that are used with these fabrics that are both environmentally friendly, but help people with movement and mobility issues, that they can dress themselves or, you know, get around and do things more on their own without just normal clothes being inhibiting to them and their ability to move. The next slide has a couple more examples of just physical objects. Just simple designs, even just with a cane, the actual, you know, the actual content or the medium that they're using, they're looking at the sustainable factors, they're looking at even just sort of looking at colors and all these things that are not just making it functional, but making it beautiful and making it objects that people aren't ashamed to be carrying or have with them, but things that people are going to want to use and actually be excited about. So it's adding the happiness and sort of the excitement of life, also with the necessity of having these objects. With the next slide, I also want to highlight that as much as this is a design and technology issue, it's inherently a political one, which many of these, you know, reference sort of political and sort of human rights and social justice issues. So many of these improvements are motivated by policies and different kinds of laws and how we look after each other. So specifically the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990, which was amended only a little over 10 years ago, which is, you know, really recently when you look at the human history of how we're dealing with, you know, different kinds of, you know, human rights here. But it's all about prohibiting discrimination against people with disabilities. Can you believe it? Only like 10 years ago, there weren't as many laws that made sure that people with disabilities had the same opportunities that so many other people do in terms of, you know, work opportunities or advocacy or inclusivity. And a lot of this was because they didn't have the technology or the innovation to help equal the playing field, if you will. So much of this has become more readily available in the last couple years or so. I like the quote on the next slide that talks about, you know, the idea of making an opportunity out of a hard situation. I like the idea of, with every crisis, there is opportunity. We've seen that with COVID. We've seen that with so many crises and protests. It's really finding the optimism and the possibilities within challenging situations. So I like this one that says, disability is a mismatch between my own abilities and the world around me. Disability is a design opportunity. And obviously it goes without saying, but disability is also a technology opportunity, an art opportunity. Design is sort of the marriage of those two things together. But it's really important, I think, to look at that as an opportunity, and look at it as a challenge, of course, but it's really important how we frame our thoughts, because if we think of it as something that's impossible, we're not even going to try to overcome it. But if we look at it as an opportunity, that just immediately opens the opportunities up. If we look at it in a way that, let's discuss it, let's talk about it, let's see what's possible. So with that being said, I want to highlight sort of as a closer, again, you know, we're in a pandemic era of life. So what does that mean for these art museums that I'm showing you? So many of them have put virtual tours up online, tried to make their collections and their resources available remotely. So there's tons of resources here. Again, you'll have this, I'll post it on LMS after our meeting today. So you can, you know, look at these as long as you want. I'm not sure how many of these are still available right now. It was like in March and April was sort of the height of a lot of things, and they made a lot available. Things are strangely kind of reopening in the US, which is contradictory to what's happening. So we'll see what happens there. But it's really exciting to see how a lot of art institutions were trying to kind of meet the moment and make some, you know, resources available online. So with that being said, I would love to segue into discussion and just hearing your thoughts on all of this. I put a couple questions on the screen just to kind of prompt conversation, but don't feel limited to these. I would love to just hear your preference about what you think about sort of the digital versus physical works of art. What do you think the future of art really looks like, specifically in this sort of technology context? Pros and cons of digital art, like what do you like, what do you don't like? What's your favorite? And how could these maybe be inspiration, or maybe you could even incorporate some thoughts into your own projects, into your own sort of thoughts of what you'd like to do in the pathway in the future. So we can just take a minute and think before we start discussion, because I know I threw a lot at you. We kind of just had a huge crash course, so you can take a minute and kind of think about some things, maybe jot some thoughts down. So let's just take a minute and kind of look at the questions, and then we'll come back in just a minute. All right, I want to open it up if people want to have any initial thoughts, but feel free to just keep thinking as we segue into conversation. But any just initial reactions or thoughts about the topic, or any of these questions.
I had an initial thought about the pros and cons of digital art. One of the pros, like in digital art, like some of the materials you might use while you're painting or drawing aren't good for your respiratory system. They smell, especially if you're like using oil painting. So that could be a pro. A con is that you don't get to feel that joy of I don't know, like the texture of the painting and yeah, coloring
Yeah.
everything around you, getting
Yeah.
dirt. Yeah.
Well, as a painter, you definitely know that experience. What kind of painting do you generally work with?
I used to work with yeah, I used to work with acrylic paints, and then I turned into oil paints.
Mm,
Mhm.
very cool. Yeah, I primarily work with oil too, although I'll sometimes use acrylic because sometimes it's just more of a practical choice. It dries quicker, it's less toxic, and all those kinds of things. But yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. Anyone else have some initial thoughts? Feel free to put them in the chat. Just unmute yourself. You don't have to wait to be called on. But I'd love to hear something from everyone.
I think that anyone can be an artist using digital art very easily, because I think like the material art or the physical art demands more natural talent, and that can be a pro and a con, because you can be an artist whoever you are, whether you have the talent or not, but that will also not be very nice to the actually talented people.
Thank you for sharing. It's an interesting point you've brought up, and that's been debated for people for millennia. For philosophers and artists have debated these topics of like, what's natural talent and how much is everyone an artist, and what kinds of skills do you need to be considered a talented artist, all those things. So that's a whole, college semester course. So that's like a great topic. What I'm hoping to introduce in this pathway is that everyone can be an artist, and I believe is an artist. There's a famous Picasso quote that talks about how every child is an artist, and then we spend our whole lives trying to kind of find that spirit again. So I don't know, it's an interesting topic and everyone's got different perspectives, but I think you're right though. I think that digital art can make art more accessible for people in making art and experiencing art. So that's really exciting.
I partially agree with Hale, except for the fact that it's about having the natural talent and not people being able to easily do digital art, because in digital art there are some skills that you don't really have to learn, like mixing a lot of colors until you finally get the color that you want, when in digital art you just have to look for it and you'll find it. So it's good that it's easier and more accessible to everyone, but the problem is there are many things as an artist that you will not learn, that you won't need to learn, and that's pretty sad, I think. And I'm naturally a classic person when it comes to art, and I prefer like getting dirty with the colors, and I prefer using the traditional methods and like feeling the actual material and the pencil and the acrylic and etc. So, and that sort of, that we don't find that in digital art, but it doesn't mean that it's any less beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful in its own way, in its own sophisticated modern way, but I mean, it's a personal opinion after all. It's about being a classic or for the modern let's say aspect of art.
I think in the future it will be more hard to be a famous or a special artist, since everyone can get creative, and it will demand a very high level of creativity to be actually special in your art.
I have a thought about the main advantage of the digital art is that it's don't demand the actual stuff like classic art. So you don't need to bring the paper, the paints, and so on, this stuff. And all, literally everything you need for the digital art is your laptop or like your computer and your hands. So I think the main advantage is that it's the way easier, and unfortunately some people believe that digital artists are not the like actual artists. So yeah.
Yes,
From
I
my
know a lot of people who think that. I'm sorry. I'm
uh,
sorry, continue.
I just want to say that from my point of view, the main advantage of digital art is that you can undo your mistakes, like because like during drawing you can undo it, like literally, so it will be the version that you like changed. Yeah. Oh, Manel, let's continue, please.
That's okay. About the point of undo and the point of Najida, she said that some people consider digital artists not artists, and I know a lot of people who have that opinion, and who say that the fact that you can undo your mistakes, and the fact that you have those templates already ready for you, and the fact that there are so many things that you don't really have to learn or do and or make the effort for doesn't make you a real artist. So I think it's a very important debate on in this, especially in this era of this digital art, and to define what artist really means or what art is, so that we can understand the two points of view, who think people who think that digital art is an art and people who don't really consider it that way. So I'd like to hear your opinions about that.
Actually, for me, a person like me, I don't have a talent of drawing or painting, but I can do and I can deal with it well with editing and with the Photoshop and the digital art. So I guess it is better for me personally, and it is the speed also. It doesn't really take a long time and not a lot of materials. You just need your graphic, maybe a tablet or your computer to work with it. So yeah, I guess that's it.
But I believe since you think it's very accessible and more easy, like digital art is much more easy. So when you see a very nice piece of digital art, it must, like, when it's special and when you think that, wow, it's amazing, you must be creative to be able to do that. Like, um, material art, you can be creative very easily and you are immediately special because you're using your hands and the brushes and the colors. It's all very unique, but to be unique using digital art is harder.
I think like our opinion about it depends on like how we look at the notion of art, actually, because like art is something that has a truly deep meaning, and in my opinion, in my personal opinion, I think it's all like it doesn't depend on the way how it was manufactured, because at least at the end it should like make a question, make people curious about it, and it's like um, maybe artists should be thankful that they have like this implementation of new tools to enhance the creative process towards innovative and unexplored paths of art. Like there is so many more new.
And one more point, I think the only ones who can actually judge if it's a good piece of digital art or not are digital artists, because they are the one dealing with the tools and knowing what's easy and what's not.
Actually, that just made me think of something. I'll share an additional resource with you all when we close the meeting. I'll post it on LMS. But I like your topic about, you know, who decides if it's like good art or if it's art, or like, can digital artists be the only ones to assess if it's digital art or if it's good? That's sort of like the art term for that is art criticism. So just deciding what is art and if it's good or bad, or if it's, you know, I prefer the terminology if it's successful or if it communicates what it's trying to say as opposed to good or bad. But there's some really good sort of steps in terms of how to sort of discuss art and how to try to understand art. And in terms of just like kind of, there's like a normal sort of 4-step process of first you're sort of describing what you're looking at, and then you're analyzing it, like what does that mean? You're gaining interpretation, so like making associations of like, this is what it looks like, this is generally what it means, so how can I make sense of that? And then the fourth and final step is making a conclusion about it. So if it's successful or not, if you think the artist, you know, was trying to communicate something and they did it well. So, and that's like, people go to school for that, for art theory and things like that. So it's a big topic, but if you're curious about it, I'll like post, you know, a bit of information, and that can maybe help us know how to even break down works of art and how to think about it. But this is such a great discussion, everyone. Thank you. I'd love to hear from everyone. So let's see, like, Shayna, do you have any thoughts about kind of what we've seen or what we've heard, and any kind of initial reactions? Sorry, I don't think we can hear you.
I forgot to unmute myself.
Oh, that's okay.
I just wanted to say that I enjoy both types of the arts, both digital one. Both of them are really beautiful, but I think that the physical work of art that demands a lot of work, a lot of hard work on it, and that's why I prefer the physical work of art more than the digital. I don't know why really, but that's my choice.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Very articulate thoughts. I would love to hear from all of you specifically. I'm just curious what you think like the future of art looks like. We're looking at these technology works of art, so and it just keeps changing every day. So I'm just curious like what you see the future looking like.
I think it will be all like virtual reality. Like, you know, when you wear these glasses and you look around and it's something crazy, that's how it will be.
Is anyone here familiar with the story Ready Player One? It was a book and was turned into a movie about a year ago. Well, it's about this society, this futuristic human society where they basically live in virtual reality, and there is a real world, but they have these glasses that they put on that connect all of their senses to this other virtual world, and they basically live there. And I just think that what you said
I have watched
relates
that.
pretty much directly into that.
I know an anime that has the same idea. It's called Sword Art Online, but it's like a game. But it's not really. It is a virtual reality, but the real person got stuck there, and it has to finish the game in order to get back to real life. So yeah, I think they're gonna be more sophisticated video games and virtual realities like that. Besides, maybe I thought of 3D sculptures that aren't really with real mud, but like I don't know, like some sophisticated program, like a hologram, and you have the material, but it's not really material, but it's I don't know how to explain it. So you can sculpt a face or a figure or whatever, but um, but it's not real. It's just like a hologram.
Like the Hunger Games.
Yeah, I really enjoy the science fiction books, so I guess our future will be just like them, living in a virtual world.
This might seem like a silly example, but I think of the movie Wall-E. It's like that Pixar movie. I don't know if y'all have seen it. It's interesting because I think that's a cool blend of, I mean, it's an animated film too, so they're using art and technology to talk about technology and the environment and all of that. But I just think it's fascinating when you're looking at sort of how it affects, human experience and connection and even things like robots and stuff. I don't know, it's just fascinating. Like, another question I don't know, I'm just curious what you all think is like, is there any sort of ethical questions that we should be asking? Like, what, is there such, I don't know, like censorship is a topic that comes up a lot in these sort of discussions, or moral responsibility of how we, you know, determine what's reality and what's not reality. I mean, all those kinds of questions. Do you have any sort of thoughts as to like what kinds of standards we should put, if any, or what are the ethical ramifications of this trajectory?
I guess the credibility and also the art of plagiarism. We've talked about it. Everyone has got to give the credit to others if he got inspired or something, because it is now already a very, very important topic to discuss. So what about the future? It's going to be more and more important.
Yeah, and I was about to say that I think it's very worrying to how awesome the utopic virtual realities we're gonna make in the future, because what if at a certain point all people that go into this virtual experience and like never want to go back to real life, and what if all the producers would only focus on creating highly sophisticated virtual realities rather than making our real reality better? So the problem here is how to limit the usage of these things, especially with teenagers. It's just the same case with internet or with social media. If you use it too much, you won't want to get back to real life, and you won't want to get back to your usual responsibilities as a real human being, not a user of the virtual world. So it's really a big problem, and maybe some limits will have to be set.
That's similar to the idea of how some people say that artificial intelligence will take over the world and we won't do anything in our lives, and robots will run around and run everything, and you'll become the robot. And I have another question. I've been wondering, will we ever run out of new ideas? Like, do human beings, like, at some point, will we run out of ideas? And if not, why not?
You mean ideas concerning art or ideas in general?
Ideas concerning art, like, at some point, will become copying each other because already someone thought of it before you.
I guess we as humans never stop learning, never stop seeing new things. So I don't think ideas will never, we will never run out of ideas. because I don't know, every day there's something new. There's something new in our universe. We've just seen the NASA and the way they're going to Mars. We're gonna have lots of ideas considering astronomy. We're gonna discover our oceans. I mean, it's gonna be another world, and the ideas we will never run out of ideas.
In addition, ideas always inspire other ideas. I could see your art piece and like someone other's art piece. I'll combine them. I'll get another art piece, or it will inspire me to do my own. So yeah, we'll never. And technology is like is and will always be developing. There will be new technologies.
That's such a good question. Does anyone else have any thoughts? It's like, I don't think there's really even a wrong answer to that. That's a really good question.
I think there is no way that we will run out of ideas, because I think a person doesn't actually understand and like how many of a potential he already has. And also our ideas always like depend on our situation in life, the issues, the needs, because like for example, let's take the basics from ecological problems. Like global warming has started because of us, and it's like now we're looking for solutions, and there will be something new to look and think about. So
I wanted to discuss question 4. It was what was your favorite digital art? So the room with the light bulbs and like the 3 rooms you showed us with the heartbeats, um, they really caught my attention. I feel like a new door opened my mind. I'm really into electrical engineering, so I'm now just like I'm just thinking about new thoughts, paintings. We can do interactive paintings. Like we could have paintings that everyone would say a different painting. So it depends like on your heartbeat, your breathing rhythm. So yeah, that was my favorite.
That's awesome. I love that, like, that's causing you to think of even other ideas, because there are, like, it's like you said earlier, like other ideas generate more ideas, which generate more ideas. So I think that's why I keep pushing the idea of thinking like an artist, because like the number one first thing is like idea generation. And I think, we've talked about education a little bit yesterday and how like that's such an important topic. And sadly, I know at least in the US, I mean, there's such a push for memorization and testing and things that like simple ideas of, coming up with ideas is getting a bit lost, and critical thinking and things like that. So I totally agree with you all. Like, I think, we're always going to come up with ideas, but we also need to be in an environment where like we're kind of being taught like that's actually a skill and it's a practice. And like people, I put that quote about Steve Jobs on LMS for today, because it's really like people build their careers off of making ideas, and they like, it's a lifelong journey, and we're lifelong learners. So we need to continually, practice that and be intentional about, keeping up with creative thoughts. And, either it's writing things down, and it's being in community, it's talking with people and having consistent, you know, questions, all of that. So I hope that kind of inspires you to kind of keep thinking and being creative, and pushing each other and challenging each other. Yeah, actually, so I know we only have a few minutes left, so I don't want to take more of the time talking. So I'd love to hear any sort of final thoughts from everyone. Actually, can I have, I'd love to hear from every single person. So either type it in the chat or say it out loud, like your number one takeaway from today. something you learned, favorite thing, whatever.
I personally got an answer to my question. Yes, we will never run out of ideas. And I don't know who said that, but we will have more problems in the future, and problems trigger more ideas. And yeah, we will not run out of ideas.
Just wanted to say something, and I hope to not disappoint you, Hale, but I think the only possibility for for new ideas to ever exist again is for us to, at a certain point in time, maybe millions of years from now, if we still exist, we reach this point of knowing everything regarding our universe, regarding our existence, regarding our psychology. And at that point, if we really know everything, we know why we're here, we know how we're made, we know how the universe works, then there would be nothing else to think of, maybe. But I'm not sure. I think it would take a big amount of time, and I don't know. I'm not sure. And for the thing I learned, I really love the discussion of material art versus digital art, and I loved all of your opinions, and I liked also um, the museums and the galleries and the people who made digital art propositions. I really liked all that. So this was a special call, actually.
My personal takeaway from this lesson was like the way how people look on the digital art from different perspectives. And I think that everything about digital and material art is depending on like how we look an art and like how we can criticize it.
For me, actually, I was really fascinated by the museums. I really love visiting museums. Whenever we go to any new city or new place, I love to go and invade their museums. So it was a great experience. Also, I like the conversation about the ideas that Hala has mentioned, and everything that has a relationship with digital art versus the physical art we are used to have. And yeah, thank you so much for such an amazing discussion with you all.
To me, my takeaway is that I already can imagine a future like me walking in the streets and seeing art pieces and artworks on billboards around me. You know, like how um they always visualize our future like everything is glazed, everything is white. There's no human there's no human touch. So now I can imagine it the other way around. Um, I don't know, but like I don't know why I had the thought that um, like people are losing interests in arts, um, or the art arts doesn't evolve. Mm, like we'll get to some level that people won't care about arts anymore. But I changed that idea now.
My favorite part about today's lesson was like I didn't knew that digital art has so many types. I knew only some of them. Now I know a lot, and also I really enjoyed our discussions that we had, and also the museums I saw, especially with the museum with heartbeats and with the fingerprints, and that was amazing.
We have a thought from our last but certainly not least, our lovely Nadia. She says, I also like the idea that more problems cause more ideas. It was interesting to hear your opinion about art and digital art itself. Yes, I totally agree with that. You all have such nuanced ways of thinking about it, meaning that, like, you know, you're considering all these, you know, big and small components, and it's, you know, you all are shaping that future. So I'm excited that you all are going to be on the forefront of that. So thank you for that. Just to wrap up, because I'll let you go, we're at the end of our time here. But just a reminder, or two reminders. Oh, thank you. Just to be working on your logos and researching your topic, because that's going to inform the next stages of your project. So try to keep up with that as best you can so you're not overloaded at the end. I've done that a million times and it's not worth it. Trust me, don't put it off to the end. You're going to be hating yourself at the 3 a.m. Don't do it. It's just painful. In addition, please keep up with the discussion boards. They're for you as a way to help you collect your thoughts and put them kind of on paper, on virtual paper. Writing things down is critical to idea generation and to thinking things through, coming up with your plans. And this is a great way to share it, and you're getting feedback and it'll help you grow. So please do that. And finally, I'll be posting the presentation. I'll even post a little bit on just sort of the bit of art criticism, because I think that might be of interest. And yeah, so that's it for today. We'll meet again same time tomorrow. New topics, so get excited. Eco/environmental art. There'll be some overlap, as you'll see, across the topics, but I'm really excited about this one. So I hope you are too. But thanks again, ladies. I don't know, I appreciate you all so much. So I'm excited to have a great rest of your evening, afternoon, or morning, whatever time it is for you. Oh, I love all the clapping hands. I wish I could do a heart, but we'll have to just make that up, I guess. Oh, great. Wait, can I take a screenshot of this? This is so cute. We'll do little hearts. Okay, just a second. Let me see if I can multitask here. All right, just a second. Hold it, hold it. Okay, wait, if I can do this, I'm gonna just like do like part of a heart so I can take the screenshot. Hold on. Yeah, I'll do one more, hold on. Amazing, okay, thank you. I'll post this. I'm gonna post the announcement of the reminders and I'll share the screenshot there. Awesome. All right, much love and virtual hugs. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
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 Girls. Bye.
Awesome.
Great
Oh,
job.
thanks, Dia. I can't believe Mr. Rosh was on. That's so cool.